Oh, what's happening, people? Welcome back to the Tiki Taka podcast. We want to hear hot takes, unbiased opinions, and hopefully have a couple laughs along the way. And one thing that I wanted to talk about, and me and Michael have spoken about briefly off air, and I was just going to give them both MVPs, but I thought because the podcast was so good that we could actually have a segment on it. JJ Reddick and Lebron James started their own podcast last week.
Yeah.
So 2 episodes out now. If you are a basketball fan and you haven't seen it, even if you're a casual basketball fan, and you just kind of want to understand the game or a player's mentality, obviously those are 2 players that played in the NBA, have performed at the highest level. And yeah, man, I just thought, I was watching the first one and I was like, I just don't want this to end.
Yeah.
I wish they could just keep going and talking about basketball. But it did make me think, when, and we spoke about this before, when Dana White said that football or soccer is the most simple game. It's like so easy to play. Anyone can do it kind of thing. And we were kind of laughing at him. But when I learn more about American sports, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I can kind of see.
No.
Because even... Obviously, this podcast, and we'll touch on this a bit more, goes into so much detail. So many plays are on, so many things the players on the court have to register and understand.
Yeah.
But even away from basketball, NFL, you've got a whole attacking team, a whole defensive team.
Schemes.
I can understand why a Dana White might look at football and think, yeah, that's basic.
Do you know what it is? From a Dana White's perspective, I can see that because he would be essentially the GM of UFC. So if he's thinking like, if I'm the GM of NFL or whatever it is, in a lot of American sports, like as a coach especially, you can influence almost every single play.
Yeah, it's so strategic
in the game.
Yeah,
NFL specifically, every play has to run through the coach or the defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, whatever it is. So in that way, it is kind of complex because there are so many plays and schematics that you have to run and X's and O's that you have to remember, that it does make it complex. But to this podcast point, I never knew basketball was, and I watched a lot of basketball, and there were certain concepts and plays that were being run, like setting screens and double teams, and certain things that I just knew and heard, watching a lot of basketball.
You didn't know about America's play?
B.O.B. Pick the picker.
Fire from the nail, the baseline. Yeah.
But there's certain things that JJ and LeBron were talking about that was just like, to me, so eye-opening to the complexity of the game. And I think there could be that in football, is my point, but we just don't hear from Pep or Mick. Like true. If Pep was to sit down with whoever the JJ equivalent would be in the football space and really dig into his sort of triangles and why he does 5-a-sides on the pitch and his overloads and why he does, it probably would be,
it wouldn't be the same.
Maybe not as complex.
Like it's just so, and the thing is with basketball, the amount of timeouts that you have, especially towards
you can engineer it. It's so crazy.
And it's like, this I found out more in their second episode, but like the coach comes up with the play or whatever. You tell people where they're gonna be, but within that play is another play.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do what you can, but if that one gets blocked, there's another play within that play that all the players on the court have to know and have to perform, and everyone has to run to the right. And if that person moves this way, you got to
move that.
Obviously, to some extent, there is that in football, but I don't.
It's not the same. Yeah. I think as well, for what they made a point of it in the recent episode of, like, you can know things in basketball. You can know they're doing the BOB or whatever it is, but you have a split sec because there's so many variations of a play, like what they were talking about with the Golden State thing. Like Golden State, Steph or Clay could do like the backdoor cut and go to the rim, or somebody could be in the corner for a 3. Like there's so many variations of one play that you have a split second to realize what they're doing and make the right read. Whereas in football, you more often than not have a bit more than a split second to realize what's happening. Like if it's a fast break or a counter attack, like, oh man, I need to get up the other end of the pitch. They're gonna switch to Rashford or whatever it's gonna be. I think it's like there's stuff that's a bit more telegraphed, and you have a bit more reaction time. And I hear that in the NBA, it's like it takes a lot just to know what's going on, to know what plays they're running, to remember all of that, and then on top of that, all the variations, and then on top of that, make that right read. In that exact moment when they inbound the ball of like, all right, Luka's not gonna get it, Kyrie's gonna get it. Let me get to Kyrie to offer help, and or Kyrie's made a quick pass, somebody set a screen. Like
now you got to change and you got to move again.
But I think to the point of the podcast, man, I just think it's incredible, honestly. I can't.
Because that was the other thing I was going to say was that they talk about it and all those terms that me and Michael have joked about there, but they actually explain it.
What it is.
Like there's like 5 minutes at the beginning of the podcast where JJ Reddick just explains kind of every term that's mentioned. And obviously, I mean, it's still like not easy to get. It's not easy to understand.
No, well, I was going to say, so two things. I think one, it makes sense why JJ's done this because he obviously there's two sides to like American sports media. There's like the journalists who are so heavily involved in sensationalism, and if you follow American sports, you know how much sensationalism there is, and whatever happens, like your legacy is after every game, your legacy is questioned, and you're on the line, and it's like either your legacy or because you won X game, you're better than these 10 players before you, or because you lost this game, these 10 guys are now better than you, and that is a lot of their sports media. And then there's the ex-pros in there who are trying to like actually break down the game and explain what's going on. So I think JJ's gotten into many arguments with people like Stephen A over like how educated are basketball fans and how educated do basketball fans really want to be. Like I can make videos that will go into the nitty-gritties of basketball. This is JJ saying this. I can make videos going into the nitty-gritty of basketball tactics and X, Y, and Z, but how many people really want to know that? They just want to know if their best player is going to make that three, or So I think a huge thing about this podcast is the like gravitas that LeBron brings to it. Of like, this is the best player in the NBA for the last 15, 20 years, whilst still currently playing in the NBA, giving you his biggest pet peeves. His like
been in the NBA for 20 years.
Literally been a pro.
How the game's changed.
It's great. He's done it. Like there isn't a more valid voice in the NBA than LeBron to speak on what plays are impossible to guard and certain attributes of players and all this kind of stuff that they're speaking about in this podcast. So I think the biggest thing is the gravitas that LeBron brings to it.
Yeah, because I think that's coupled with JJ's podcasting. Like
ability. Yeah. No, 100%. But it would literally be like Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of heads that LeBron's going to turn to this podcast.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But it's like, because sometimes, and I would say that we understand quite a lot of football.
Yeah.
We watch a lot of football. So I might watch a game. Like I might watch, well, maybe not the Arsenal Man City game because Pep and Arteta are going to.
That's in a different
Bernardo
thing.
Silva's going to be doing mad stuff. But like, I could watch maybe like a regular, like Newcastle West Ham is on TV this weekend. I could probably watch that game and say I understand 70 to 80% of what's happening in this game.
Yeah.
After listening to that podcast,
I agree with you 100%.
I thought when I actually sit down, it made me realize
I might know less basketball than I've
definitely.
Yeah,
it made me realize when I sit there and I'm self-proclaimed casual basketball fan, right? I only really lock in the playoffs, but when I sit there and watch basketball, I probably realize or understand less than 5% of what's actually going on.
No, after seeing that, I definitely agree with you because there's, as you said, there's certain elements I can. There's what the podcast showed me was like there's stuff that goes on intentionally that I think was just like ad hoc chaos, like not like improvised stuff. Before Murray gets the ball in a 2-on-2 situation where he's calling for like a screen from Jokic, there's like 3 plays that have already been run to get Murray the ball. Like, and I thought that was just like people just running around to try and create space. But no, he's running to a specific corner to draw a certain defender out so that another defender or another attacker can fill this space so that the ball can go out to the left wing. I completely agree with you that there are so many more complex combinations that are going on that I'm learning through this podcast that I just didn't think. And as you say, somebody like LeBron who's seen this for 20 years, man, who's seen how the game has changed, who's seen all the screens, and he was talking about having like veto power and just being like, no, we're not gonna do man versus man coverage or whatever it is, because there was even, I think one of the biggest things as well, sorry to like go on a tangent from this podcast, was there was like certain things I was learning from other basketball podcasts that I thought was like, oh, that's decent IQ, like the 2-for-1 element of like
and the 3-for-2.
Yeah, and the 3-for-2. And LeBron saying none of that matters if we don't have a good shot. Like if we haven't had a good shot for the last 5 possessions, why should we even look for a quick one?
Yeah.
Let's just make sure we get.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, this is like this.
Even just kind of like on that same point, like some of the simpler things of like LeBron saying, okay, we've run this play twice and I've scored twice from it.
Yeah, let's just beat
like,
this to the ground.
And his like irritation with coaches and teammates then changing the play.
Yeah.
And LeBron's like, let's just keep running this shit until it stops. Like, and they spoke about targeting as well. And that's where I kind of, obviously you mentioned Jokic there, but to hear LeBron and JJ speak about the best players in the NBA, and in terms of like, I think they referenced it as like processing speed.
Yeah.
So like for Jokic, I think they mentioned Luka, James Harden. It's like they're, because the first episode is a lot about basketball IQ, and when you get to the finals and those three players, and
that's the difference. That's what they say.
When they get the ball, their ability to process everything, and that's another thing. Like Martin Odegaard might get the ball, and he processes things quicker, faster than other football players.
Yeah, 100.
But it is just kind of like Martin Odegaard gets the ball, and some of it is he knows Bukayo Saka's going to make that run.
Yeah.
You know, whereas basketball, obviously they set the play, but the play can change.
It can break down.
Then Jokic has got to find something else, or Luka's got to find another pass in the free man.
And all of this as
to
well,
be able to process all of that so quickly
with a shot clock running down.
Yeah.
You know, timer, whatever it is, 7-foot guy in front of your face, double screen, like a double team coming.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty incredible.
Well, even when JJ was like at Philly, because Ben Simmons couldn't mark a point guard, JJ had to mark the point guard.
JJ's like,
he's been marking like number two guards his whole career. And now he's mentioned Kemba Walker, just kind of twisted him up. Like, can you imagine? You've marked a specific kind of player
your whole life
for your whole career, and now all of a sudden,
you got to the very top doing it.
Yeah, you have to mark the point guard, the number one guy.
He's got crazy handles. No, and I think one of the another interesting thing in the podcast is LeBron's like ruthlessness with like how he views people's careers.
Yeah,
he's like, yo, there's certain people that just go out there and play, and they're not gonna last long. And he's like, and he'll always throw a line in there that lets you know what he thinks about certain people that don't take basketball anywhere near as seriously as he does. Like he definitely, obviously, to get to be there for 20 years, we spoke about it, like the conditioning, the consistency, all of that it takes.
What did he say? You have to sacrifice your loved one.
Yeah. What does discipline mean to you?
Yeah.
Like all of that kind of stuff that he's saying. And this is what I say about him adding so much gravitas to the podcast, because you're like, yo, damn, I guess that is what it takes to be there till the very end. And I just thought it was very interesting, because a lot of footballers come out and say, oh, I just want to play. You know, I don't think many footballers come out with the opposite. Like Ronaldo will be one of them who will be like, yo, you have to be an absolute animal in every asset of your life if you want, you know. But a lot of footballers come out, I just want to play the game. I just want to play. I just go out there and, you know, with the ball between my feet, I feel like a kid again. And LeBron is saying the exact. He's like, yo, if you want to be good at basketball, if you want to be up here with the rest of us, you're gonna have to be an absolute psychopath.
But like the LeBron equivalent in football, like a Cristiano, wouldn't be saying, I just want to go out there and enjoy myself.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Cristiano, do you remember when they asked Cristiano, like, who are the players in the United camp who you think like take? And he was like Dallo, Bruno Fernandes, and it was like, that's it. Yeah, like everybody,
no one else, just calling them out. But yeah, and then the last thing on that podcast I wanted to touch on was the way they talked about Steph.
Changed the game.
Yeah, they said he changed the game. And in football, it's rare, maybe never, that a single individual comes in and completely changes the landscape of the game.
Yeah, like a player for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Because in football, it's more
managers,
and a manager and stuff. But because even you look at Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, they didn't really change
the game.
Like a lot more kids wanted to be wingers. You had a lot more wingers getting goals and stuff, but it wasn't.
In many ways, they did, because now goals, like wingers are considered forwards, and you can now have an onus of, like, they got 50 and 60 goals for so many seasons that you have the Sadio Mane and Salah
values attached to.
But I agree with you. Other than like, there have been very many like great players that haven't really changed the game.
Well, because like even like the way Pep played at
Yeah,
Barca
yeah,
is obviously there's been adaptations and whatever, but in terms of like one player just coming and saying, "Yo, the whole league needs to change
yeah.
because this guy is doing
Is
this
doing
now."
this.
Even Haaland, right? Like last year, obviously people couldn't cope with him. There was like, yeah, we need to, and this year, obviously people are but Haaland's dropped off slightly. This obviously his goals are
Still
still
crazy.
crazy and stuff, whatever. But in terms of Steph, they're saying when you have someone that can shoot a 3-point shot like he can,
Yeah,
you no longer. And JJ said that like the game changed for him because obviously he's a good 3-point shooter. When Steph came into the league and people realized, yeah,
we
we need
need
to get up
threes.
on that. Like, yeah, man, it was just to actually think about how one man has changed a whole sport is
Yeah,
crazy.
and
And to hear LeBron say it as well.
yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, it is very true. I think no one really expected anybody to, before Steph and stuff, teams used to take like 6 or 7 threes
Yeah,
a game,
yeah.
or like maybe 10 threes max in a game. And it was all paint points, and Shaquille O'Neal and all of these guys were like dominating, and you needed like 3 or 4 bigs. And no, I don't think anybody really expected anybody to be as consistent as people like Steph are with shooting threes. I think he could be like a 40% career shooter which is crazy.
Nuts.
And in itself, the like, threes are worth more than twos, and the just the sheer math of it all. It's great to see and hear LeBron give credit, because I feel like, it could be easy for LeBron to try and hog all of it himself and be like, the guy and da. But it's definitely good to, like, even LeBron, when he speaks about Luka and he speaks about and he's like, yo, there is these guys in here that are as good, not as good as me, but like they see the game the way I see the game. They make the plays the way I make, and they're gonna be the guys to carry it forward. But Steph, man, his legacy is so certified. So certified. And I was a Steph hater for a long time. Still am. Really. But it's just like, when a guy is so good for so long, and you kind of just have to.
That's LeBron.
Yeah. You kind of just, like, even Salah. I had a Salah agenda for the longest. But after like 4 or 5 seasons of 25 plus goals, you're like,
yeah, it's undeniable.
Yeah, I guess you are a good player.
But when JJ was saying that, like, back in late 2000s or whatever, before Steph comes into the league, there might be a 20-25 point gap going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, which would steal the team.
And you put all your reserves in. Yeah. And that's JJ Reddick saying Steph Curry changed that, because Steph came into the league now, and now a 20-point gap in the fourth quarter, that's 4 or 5 shots.
Legit.
And he's back in the game.
Legit. And I think, as we were talking about schematics and the X's and O's, I think it becomes tougher to stop people taking threes, especially if, like, we've watched basketball. We've seen that playoff run when it was more so Jordan Poole, but Steph was there as well when they beat the Celtics. There were some 3-point shots that were made.
Ridiculous.
It's like 40 feet, defender in your face.
Because I wanted the Celtics to win. Yeah, I was like, bro, there's just nothing you can. You know, when JJ says that you can't guard it.
Yeah,
like, that is one thing I noticed when I was watching that series. Like, you just cannot stop Steph.
You've sent your best defender out there. He's got Steph on his, like, weak side.
It was the same big man screen. Steph gets half a second, maybe less than that, and he gets it up and he sinks it.
What can you really do?
Yeah. When you have someone who can shoot that well
to stop that.
Yeah, man. Playoffs
is coming. Be there, be square.
Doing some basketball content. Just be talking about the playoffs and whatever.
And the last thing I'll say on this podcast, and I said it to you just off air, is I think this is a huge direction that sports media is going to go. I think fans, we've spoken about being casual. We as casual basketball fans have an interest in this kind of knowledge and depiction of the basketball game, that I think it's just going to move more towards feeding that hunger for information and for, like, plays. And fans want to be as invested or as included in the basketball process as possible. And I think it will happen with other sports. Look, you got the overlap and all these other things.
Yeah.
These, like, long form podcasts that people are doing when they're deep. I don't know, it's been around for a minute now, so it's not like it's a new revolution. But I think it's going to be more the go-to thing than even I can't stand to watch Sky Sports anymore. Like, there's nothing going on in Sky Sports that is giving me new information about football, or like any tidbit that I'm like, it's always just some YouTuber
Yeah,
giving you
yeah.
his top 5 players.
Yeah.
So I think it's just gonna more to move towards that. People, and shout out to JJ. Like, I know not CNN. I know ESPN and like First Take, and these guys are kind of shaking in their boots when, because these things are gonna do like 5-6 mil each in a couple of days, and those are
especially when they start talking about the playoffs.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be super long for ESPN, and you start seeing the viewership, and you start thinking, yo, how can we actually compete?
Because I think one of those, I might be ESPN, but one of those already have JJ doing commentary.
Yeah, JJ, they had to get him in the fold quickly.
Have to.
They had to get him in the fold quickly.
He's just dominating the market.
yeah.
But yeah, it also, like, you know this about me. I just can't really get into basketball pre the playoffs.
I'm not against that, man.
And the way they were talking about it, and LeBron and JJ, like, yo, when you get to the playoffs, you might get through the first round, but the IQ raises, the tempo raises, everyone. And I'm like, yeah, as a casual, how do you expect me to watch the regular season if you lot who have played the game at the highest level are telling me the playoffs are different?
Look,
like,
I think there's no doubt the regular season has its issues.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they've even brought this new in-season tournament thing to try and make like November, December basketball somewhat more interesting, because the first 60 games, 70, 60 games,
up until after All-Star weekend.
It's kind of it is just kind of like cannon fodder, like, but we say that to say it does have some impact, because obviously that's what sets the.
And obviously, if you love basketball,
you're
like,
all happy days.
You're just gonna watch it anyway.
But I agree with you, man. Playoffs, it's a whole different sport in playoffs.
But yeah, it's not the same sport. As a casual who's just tuning in to see the highest level of basketball and the highest pressure moments.
These score lines of like, it ended 145 to 132. That stops immediately when playoffs comes around.
Because everyone starts defending every play.
And you want to see that all year round.
Exactly.
But it's impossible. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you play 82 games, so I don't expect you to like be at that level.
No, if you're Draymond Green, you missed about 25 of them.
But